Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me, and welcome to the Boys and the Baltic Star. My name is Ben, and I'm on my own tonight. So I thought I would dredge through the back catalogue of the books I have from a misspent youth, one of which is this. So, for those who don't know about these things, this is an adventure game book. It's a choose your fate style book. Um, it is a game that you play just by picking the right paragraph and doing the right thing, and hopefully battle your way through to the end and succeed. Now, we've done quite a few of these, mostly of the Fighting Fantasy series. This one is not one of those, so it has a completely different rule set. And from my point of view, it's quite an alarming rule set, I have to tell you, because when you first start, you're given your sort of skill levels for various things: punch, kick, throw, your fate level, and they all start at zero. You get 20 endurance points, which seems ungenerous, but sure, you get 20 endurance points, but other than that, a lot of it is zero. Now, I also get five fate. Sorry, no fate points. I get five inner force points that I can use, and I can try for a block periodically. But but no, Sparrow. It involves no D10s. I'm delighted to say, this is from the 1980s, and back then even D&D was only just starting to think about D10s, and most people didn't have percentile dice in the early versions of D&D. Um, yeah, it will no doubt destroy me, I'm afraid. But we'll have a go and see how we get on. Um, D12s are beautiful. They're a beautiful thing, and my personal favourite dice. Um, but sadly, um, this uses D6s only. But I think D6s are they have a place in the pantheon. To be honest, that they've earned their spot. Um, uh, so okay, let's give it a shot because this one is scary. Um, and according to Crit, you have to pay attention, and it's not entirely reliant on luck, which does not play to my strengths because I don't necessarily have a particularly good grasp of the situation, but we will try it. We'll see how it goes and see what it looks like, um, and we will try our best. And if it all turns out to be a catastrophic failure, then we will work on the basis that that's just par for the course. So, on the magical world of Orb, alone in a sea that the people of the Man March call endless, lies the mystical island of Tranquil Dreams. Many years have passed since the time when, as an infant, you first saw its golden shores and emerald rice meadows. A servant brought you, braving the distant leagues of the ponderous ocean, from lands to which you have never returned. Your loyal servant laid you, an orphan, at the steps of the Temple of the Rock, praying that the monks would care for you, for she was frail and dying of a hideous curse. Monks have lived on the island for centuries, dedicated to the worship of their god, Quan, he who speaks the holy words of power, supreme master of unarmed combat. They live only to help others resist the evil that infests the world. Seeing that you were alone and needed care, the monks took you in, and you became an acolyte at the Temple of the Rock. Nothing was made of the strange birthmark shaped like a crown which you carry on your thigh, though you remember that the old servant insisted that it was of mystical importance. Whenever you have asked about this, the monks have bade you meditate and be patient. The most ancient and powerful of them all, Naijishi, Grand Master of the Dawn, became your foster father. He gave you guidance and training in the calm goodness of Quan, knowledge of men and their ways, and how to meditate so that your mind floats free of your body and rides the winds in search of truth. From the age of 6, however, most of your time has been spent learning the way of the tiger. Now you are a ninja, a master of the martial arts and a deadly assassin who can kill the most powerful enemies unseen and unsuspected. Like a tiger, you are strong, stealthy, agile, patient in the stalking of prey, and deadly. In the land of plenty and the man march, the fabled ninja, known as the men with no shadow, are held in awe. The mere mention of ninja strikes fear into people's hearts. But you are one of the few who worship Quan and follow the way of the tiger. You use your skill as a bringer of death to rid the world of evildoers. At an early age, you hung by the hands for hours on end from the branches of trees to strengthen your arms. You ran for miles, your light-footed speed enough to keep a 30-foot ribbon trailing above the ground. You trod tightropes as agile as a monkey. Now you swim like a fish and leap like a tiger. You move like the whisper of the breeze and glide through the blackest night like a shade. Before he died, Naijishi taught you the ninja's covenant. I will vanish into the night, change my body to wood or stone, sink into the earth and walk through walls and locked doors. I will be killed many times, yet will not die. Change my face and become invisible, able to walk among men without being seen. It was after your foster father Najishi's death that you began to live the words of the covenant. A man came to the island, Yaemon, Grand Master of Flame. Using borrowed sorcery, he tricked the monks into believing that he was a worshipper of Quan from the greater continent. He was indeed a monk, but he worshipped Quan's twisted brother, Vile, who helps the powerful to subdue the weak, and wicked men to rule fools. Yaemon slew Naijishi. No one could match him in unarmed combat, and he stole the scrolls of Ketsuin from the temple. Once more you knew the pain of loss, for you had loved Naijishi as a father. You swore an oath to Quan that one day you would avenge his death. You have honed your skills, helping the downtrodden in the land of plenty. But now the time has come to prove yourself to your brother monks at the Temple of the Rock. So, yeah, I'm not convinced that the killed many times not die thing will work either. We get certain starting things. We get some ninja tools, which we get no matter what, and there are a set of 8 skills, and you can choose 3, plus you get some the ability to throw some shuriken, and you start with 5 of those. We start with 5 uses of inner force, which we can deploy to effectively double up damage that we deal. 20 endurance, which isn't going to last very long if we take a lot of hits, because pretty much everything seems to deal at least 1d6 damage. This isn't like Fighting Fantasy where you take, 2 per turn. You can take a lot per turn. But we will see. Now, in addition to the shuriken tricks, I had to pick 3 of the 8 skills. And, not knowing what I'm going to face, I decided to pick arrow cutting, which is the ability to sweep aside an incoming arrow or even catch it, immunity to poisons, and escapology. I don't know if these are wise choices or poor choices, but they seemed like good survival choices. There were plenty of other things like lockpicking and climbing, which sound good ways of getting past things, but I decided to trust that the book will give you a way around those things if you don't have them, whereas immunity to poison sounds like something actually survival based. We will find out if my choices were wise as we play. So we turn to paragraph 1. The dawn rays of the sun greet you as you begin your preparations for the time of trial. Today, you will become the youngest ever to challenge for the title of Grand Master of the Five Winds. When your foster father, Nagishi, was murdered by Yaemon, the second Grandmaster stepped into his place. Now, many seasons later, another of the Grandmasters has died, and the position is open once more, for there must always be 5 who lead the order. You have been invited to challenge for it because of your consummate mastery of the way of the tiger. At the appointed hour you walk alone across the sands to the Temple of the Rock. It is a huge, pillared hall built into the side of an enormous boulder of red granite, brought to the rest of the island of Tranquil Dreams by the ice flows of the Age of Snow, which carved out the great valley reaches of the far north. As you approach the temple, you see that the monks and a large number of villagers have assembled to watch the combat between you and the other challenger, Gorobei. Like you, Gorobei is an initiate of the Inner Circle, a devout worshipper of Kwon and a capable fighter. He is older, heavier and stronger than you, and has been unsuccessful in one previous challenge, but he is a skillful wrestler. You walk into the temple and bow to the Grand Master of the Dawn, a man who looks younger than his 50 years, slim and taut with piercing dark eyes. Beside you, Gorobei also bows, his face a mask showing no emotion. He is clad only in a loincloth, and his rippling muscles gleam with an oil that will make it difficult to keep a grip on him. You must defeat him in unarmed combat in order to be allowed to undertake the spiritual test, which will show whether you are ready to become a Grand Master. Gorobei turns to you and bows, and you return the courtesy. The Grand Master of the Dawn reminds you that this is not a fight to the death, and you may not use inner force. He signals for you to begin. Gorobei advances warily across the polished granite floor, his big hands ready to grapple you. Will you feint a punch and then use the leaping tiger kick? Pretend to grapple but instead use the cobra strike jab? Raise your foot as if to kick but sidestep and use the whirlpool throw? Or, if you are an acrobat, you may wish to somersault to his side before attacking. Oh, well, I'm not an acrobat. I did not pick acrobat as a skill. So, I was hoping I'd rule out 1 or 2 of them as an actual grapple, but I'm confident he's going to be tough to throw because he's oily and big. So even though throws are potentially devastating, we're not going to go for that. The question is, do we feign a punch and then kick, or feign a grapple and then jab? He's obviously highly skilled. I am going to try to finish this as swiftly as I can and feign a punch and then use the leaping tiger kick. You do slightly more damage with a kick than you do with a punch. As a basis, you roll 1d6, but it's 1d6 plus 2 with a kick. So I'm going to try that. Find out how outmatched I am by this guy. So we will turn to paragraph 17. You step forward as if to punch, then, leaping in the air, you lash the ball of your foot towards Gorobei's head with a speed that defies belief. Gorobei, although not quick, knows your style of combat. Okay. Now, Gorobei has an endurance of 14, which is less than mine. However, I have to beat, in order to hurt him, I have to beat what's called defense against kick, in this case, which is 6. Unlike most RPG systems, you actually have to beat the number, not simply line it up. So I need to roll a 7 or better in order to land my kick. And if I do, I can do 1d6 plus 2 damage because it's a kick. Okay? Okay, well that was an 8. So luckily I have landed the kick. And now I roll 1d6, which is a 5 plus 2 is 7. That has halved his endurance, down to 7. That's not too bad for a start. It then says, if you've defeated him, turn to 110, but I have not, obviously. If Gorobei is still conscious, he attacks me. My defense against Gorobei's Cobra Strike is 7. So he has to hit an 8 or better. And he has rolled a 7. So he has missed me. So my choice is, since I'm undamaged at this point, will I feint and punch, feint and throw, or kick again? If I punch or throw, I get to turn to a different paragraph. But if I kick again, I get to have another go the same way. As I'm kind of learning the system and learning how to feed through, I'm going to try something a little bit different. So I'm going to try feint and punch this time. No, I'm not, because he's down to 7, which I can theoretically hit with a kick. So we will hope for the best and try to do the same attack again. Because I might be able to knock him out this turn if I get lucky with the dice. Okay, that's a 10, which means I easily land the kick. Now I need a 5 or a 6 in order to knock him down at once. That's a 3. Okay, so he's now down to just 2 points. I have not defeated Gorobei, but he has only 2 points left on his endurance. So he gets a go. Gorobei is still conscious. He attacks you. Yes, he is. My defense is 7, so he's got to roll an 8 or better. And this time he's rolled a 12, which is comfortably an 8 or better. He does 1d6 damage, which, wouldn't you know it, is a 6. So that knocks my endurance down to 14. To be fair, that's where he started. So I am going to try, knowing that I only need 2 to knock him out, I'm going to try a punch. So I'll feint and punch and turn to 35 and hope that his defense against punch is worse than 6. Feint and punch, turn to 35. Okay. You crouch as if to wrestle with Gorobei, who tenses, ready to throw his extra weight against yours. But you jab unexpectedly towards his midriff. Gorobei's reach is long, and he is skilled in punching and blocking, though not as fast as you. Okay. In actual fact, his defense against punching is better than his defense against kicking. So this was a poor choice, but we'll give it a shot. So I need to hit an 8. And I actually hit a 10. So I have landed a hit. I only get to roll one die. I need anything except a 1 to end this fight. And it's a 3. So he is down. Thankfully, if you've defeated Gorobei, turn to 110. I have indeed defeated Gorobei. So, 110. Your last blow sent Gorobei tumbling senseless to the granite floor. A ripple of applause greets your victory, and the Grand Master of the Dawn compliments you on your fighting prowess and beckons you into the robing chamber. You step beyond the temple hall through silken drapes into a small dark room, completely bare of furnishings save for 2 enormous copper chests. Incense is burning in a corner, which swings from the ceiling like a pendulum. The room is lit by white candles. You kneel on the rush matting, facing the 3 Grand Masters, who stare ahead, unseeing, waiting for you to break the silence which you are determined to keep. After an hour candle has sputtered its last, during which time none of you has moved so much as a muscle, the Grand Master of the Dawn looks into your eyes and says, Quan knows that you desire in your heart to serve him, but I must ask you 2 questions. Do you truly desire to serve Quan above all other things? Or do you desire to avenge the death of your foster father, Nagishi, more even than to serve your god? What should a ninja fear most? The failure of a mission, or capture by an enemy who will use torture to gain secrets? You know that in your heart of hearts you would rather avenge Nagishi than anything else in Orb, but a Grand Master should dedicate his life to Quan. As for the second question, you can only let your good sense guide you. So, do you answer? I desire to serve Quan above all else, and I fear only failure of a mission. Or, I desire to avenge the father who loved me, and I fear torture above all. Or, essentially, the other 2 combinations. I desire to avenge, but I fear the failure, and I desire to serve Quan, and I fear torture. So, I think whatever happens here, honesty is the right course of action. So, I will say I desire to avenge the father who loved me. I don't believe that means I won't serve Quan nobly, but I do desire to avenge the father. And I suppose self-confidence would tell me that the way it's put, I fear torture above all. It's not really that, it's the thought that I would fall to it, but still, that's the one, I suspect. I'd rather back out of the mission, but have another go later, rather than fall captive and be unable to pursue it later. So, I guess it's the second one. I desire to avenge the father who loved me, and I fear torture above all. So that's the closest to what I think, which is 151. So let's see what happens. The Grand Master smiles and shakes his head. You have answered truthfully. It is not wrong that you should wish to avenge Nagishi, who loved you and taught you to love our Lord Quan, but you must wait patiently for your time to come, and never forget that the service of Quan is the helping of all mankind. But as for torture, it is only through failing a mission that a true ninja could be captured, and there is always time to bite one's tongue from one's head and bleed to death rather than risk betraying secrets. You need only fear the failure of a mission. I shall not say that you have failed, for never has one mastered the way of the tiger so ably as you, and we would not keep our sharpest weapon forever sheathed. You have passed the test. They lead you back to the temple hall where the monks and villagers have waited to see whether you would pass the test. Prayers to Quan are offered up as part of the ceremony, at which you are ordained as Grand Master of the Five Winds. Gorobel applauds with the others, for now he remains an adept of the inner circle, but his time will come, for he is a great warrior and a good monk. Should you die, he will probably succeed you. Turn to 191. Okay. Okay. 191. After the ceremony, you all file out of the temple onto the golden sands, and there is a frugal feast of rice and fruits shared by the villagers and the monks. You eat sparingly and take your leave early, wishing to meditate before you sleep. Relaxed from the meditation, which frees your spirit from the shackles of your aching body, your eyes close as soon as you lay yourself down on the straw-filled sacking that is your bed. You drift into a deep but troubled sleep. You see a sleek oared ship setting sail from the land of plenty. A tall, resolute-looking man is on the high stern castle, his legs braced against the swell. He wears a thick cloak of dark green against the weather, and the sun flashes so vividly on the buckle of his sword belt that you believe this is not a dream, but a vision. A sailor calls him by name, Glavas, and he turns to look at you, but then the vision fades and the brilliant blue sky is replaced by sombre purple clouds, against which a large and dark castle looms. 3 turrets on a great black keep seem to pierce the clouds. You are walking towards it, bent on completing a difficult and important mission. When you awake, you remember the dreams as if they were pictures painted on the wall of your monastic cell, but your sleep has at least restored any endurance you lost in your contest with Gorobei. You are walking towards the temple when there is a commotion on the beach, and 2 fishermen run up to you with the news that a ship is riding at anchor offshore. A man rows himself to the beach and steps out, as the Grand Masters walk to the strand to greet him. He introduces himself as Glavas, and, bowing respectfully, he asks to talk to the Grand Master of Grand Masters. "You may address us all," says the Grand Master of the Dawn, "for we have no secrets on the island of tranquil dreams." "Not since you lost the scrolls of Ketsuin," Glavas returns darkly. "What do you know of the scrolls of Ketsuin?" asks the Grand Master. The monks wait tensely as Glavas looks around carefully before replying. "The scrolls of Ketsuin hold the secret to the word of power, which will bind Quan himself in Inferno, if it is spoken at the Pillars of Change in the grand snow wastes of the north. Yaemon, Grand Master of Flame, of the Order of the Scarlet Mantis, stole it from you many years ago, and he has deciphered the word. It is the month of All-Mother Splendor, and for 3 days the moon will turn red during the great conjunction of the planets, something that occurs only once every 500 years. If the word is spoken by the pillars of change at this time, your god, Quan, will be imprisoned in the bottomless pit of fire, leaving the monks who worship Vile free to spread their dominion over the lands of man. At the mention of Yaemon's name there is uproar, but as Glavis continues, an unnatural quiet descends. Yaemon is preparing to set out even now from the city of Doomover on the long journey to the ice wastes. Though a ranger long used to patrolling the wilderness on the edge of the rift, I am no match for such as he. Is there one among you who will try to stop him? As Glavis spoke, you felt the burning need to be revenged on Yaemon flare within your breast. Your dream of Glavis, for it was he you saw astride the deck of the ship which now rides at anchor near the sands, has convinced you that you are destined for this quest, and you step forward saying, I shall stop him. You are young, says Glavis. Can you succeed where I, a ranger lord, would fail? I am ninja, you reply. Glavis starts. The Grand Master of the Dawn sighs and says, Yes, I rename you Avenger, for if anyone can succeed, and you must, for the sake of all mankind, it will be you. With that, he turns towards the temple and prayer. The city of Doomover lies on the western coast of the Man March, and Glavis gives you a map which shows the many cities and strange lands which stretch north to the snow wastes. You spend the rest of the day preparing, lacing the iron sleeves to your dark-hued costume and gathering together the tools of the ninja, before spending some hours in quiet meditation. You board Glavis's ship in time to sail on the evening tide. You must find Yaemon and kill him before he reaches the Pillars of Change, or all will be lost. Turn to 232. Okay, I'm just going to restore my endurance as instructed back to its starting initial value. And then we will turn to 232. Okie dokie. The ship which Glavis has chartered, the Aquamarine, has 100 oars and 2 masts. The winds are kind to you, and you scud across the azure plain. The sea is so calm that after 2 weeks without the tang of salt spray on your lips, you forget that it is composed of water at all. The oarsmen row for 10 hours a day, but they are free men, not chained to their oars. 2 bear the scars of a pirate's persuader, captured by buccaneers. They are of the lucky few who have lived to see the sky again. All of them have the heavy upper body of the oarsman. Some who turn to the sea for their livelihood too young are squat and misshapen, moulded by the life at the oar into grotesque travesties of the mountain dwarves. The land of plenty passes to the south, and you are in sight of the isle of the magical goddess when the lookout cries a warning. The helmsman steers a new course, and the drumbeat quickens as the oarsmen redouble their efforts. The ship that is approaching is long and low, painted green and red and flying a red pennant at the top of its mast. Glavis, standing next to you at the rail, says, That ship is from Porter Reivers. We'll never outrun it. So saying, he draws his sword. The oarsmen strain, sweating with effort, but they cannot match the pace of the slaves on the Reivers ship, galvanised into a frenzied spurt by the barbed whips of their overseers. At last the captain gives the order, "Prepare to repel boarders," and you ready yourself for combat. The pirate ship carries a spiked ram, but they are obviously trying to take the Aquamarine as a prize, for they grapple and come alongside. The Reivers carry scimitars and chain nets, and are led in their rush to attack by a 9-foot monster whose body is covered in knobbles of misgrown bone, an ogre with a large spiked hammer. The Aquamarine's crew look no match for the battle-scarred buccaneers. So, we can leap into the rigging and hurl a shuriken at the ogre, or attack the ogre as it comes aboard, flattening a section of the Aquamarine's rail. Yeah. This one is a tricky call for me. Not knowing exactly how tough the ogre's going to be to fight, I'm tempted to start with a shuriken in the hope that we can at least have another go later. The downside is, if I kill the ogre eventually, will his body fall into the sea, making it impossible to retrieve the shuriken? But let's soften him up a bit first. We've got 5 shuriken, we can spare at least one. So let's hurl a shuriken at the ogre. That's 257. Okay. Your shuriken glints in the sun as it hurtles towards its mark in the ogre's chest. As you leap down from the rigging, a volley of arrows is let loose from the stern castle of the Reaver's ship. The ogre grunts with pain as the shuriken lodges in its chest. Throw 1 die and take the score from the huge beast's endurance of 16. Okay. That's a 4, so he's down to 12. One of the pirate's arrows is coming at you. Do you have the skill of arrow cutting? If you have, turn to 380. I do have the skill of arrow cutting. It's one of the 3 I picked. So we will turn to 380. That's got to be good news, right? The arrow reaches you as you are in mid-air between the rigging and the deck, but you whip your hand up and snatch it out of the air inches before your chest and throw it aside. The ogre, enraged, raises its spike hammer to smash you. Will you try the winged horse kick, attempt the iron fist punch, or slide across the deck and use the dragon's tail throw? Well, he's big. And he's going to take some damage. I don't think the throw is going to be a good idea because he's 9 feet tall. I suspect he weighs the same as a small elephant. So we're not going to try and throw him. We're instead going to try and kick him, I think. The only thing I'm worried about is his sheer height makes that difficult. But, you know, I'm supposed to be able to leap about a bit. So we'll give it a shot. We will try a winged horse kick and turn to 332. You spin and drive the outside of your foot towards the ogre's purple-veined throat as it tries to swat you aside with its hammer. Okay. So there's good news and bad news. The good news is It has defense against kick of 5, so there's a very good chance of doing it damage. The bad news is that it has damage. When it hits me, it does damage of 2 dice. Now it's down to endurance 12, so what I'm going to do, and I need to check the rule here about when I need to deploy it, because there is a thing I can do, which is, 1 second, inner force. Before you roll the dice to determine if you'll hit or miss an opponent, you may choose to use inner force. If you do, it costs you 1 from your inner force score, but it doubles the damage that you inflict. So, what I will do is reduce my inner force down to 4. I will roll to see if I can beat 5, and if I can, that becomes 1d6 plus 2 doubled, which could theoretically be as much as 16. Remember, he's only got 12 left, so this could be a blow that will knock him down, hopefully. Okay, so that's 8, which means I hit. I now roll 1d6 plus 2 and double it. And that's a 5 plus 2 is 7. Doubled is 14. That means he is done. I have defeated the ogre. I turn to 360. Very good stuff. The ogre buckles at the knees and topples backwards between the two ships. Yeah, I feared that would happen. A plume of spray rises from where he plummets into the water. If you have used a shuriken, it is lost with the ogre. Yes, I have. So that's down to 4 shuriken. Looking quickly around you, you can see that the reavers, with their earrings and scimitars, are more than a match for the crew of the Aquamarine. Glaver's swordsmanship is startling, but they are slowly penning him in. With a punishing sidekick, you knock a new attacker to the floor where he lies inert. Another huge, wart-faced half-orc lunges at you with his cutlass. With incredible speed, you clap your hands together, trapping the blade between them, inches from your face. He has time to gape in astonishment before you smash the top of your right foot into his temple. Now, will you try to fight your way through to Glavis, or jump to the Reaver's ship to attack the pirate captain? So, that's a tough call. If I can take down the pirate captain, there's a chance that they might break. But they are penning Glavis in, and I'd like to keep him alive if I can. Oh, I can't decide. One problem at a time. Let's try to fight the way through to Glavis. Turn to 371. You fight on, felling 2 more of the swarthy buccaneers, but the crew are rapidly being overpowered. Some fools are even surrendering. You are surrounded, but no one can close with you past the flashing blows of your fists and feet. Suddenly, one of them looks above you and grins. Turning your eyes to the heavens, you see the rigging collapsing on you. One of them has shinned up the mast and cut the rigging down. You can hardly move beneath it, and a torrent of pirate bodies bears you struggling to the ground. You are carried below. Your ninja equipment is taken from you, and you are roped to one of the Aquamarine's oars. Turn to 19. It appears I chose poorly. Okay, 19. We're not dead yet. There's always a chance. The Aquamarine's huge oars are each manned by 2. At your side, a rower, until recently free but now roped by the reevers to the oar shaft, stares blankly at you. You can tell by the white scars on his back that he is one of the 2 who's been in slave galleys before. His upper body is huge, his chest unnaturally deep, and his legs squat and tapering in small feet, giving him the appearance of a toad. He tells you that he has been enslaved as a boy and knows no other life than that of the oar deck. He groans quietly at the savage twist of fate that has befallen him, and tells you that he was the only one on his last slave ship to live longer than a year. The buccaneers appoint an overseer and 2 whip hands to patrol the Aquamarine's oar deck. It seems they are going to sell her and her crew at some lawless port. Are you an escapologist? If you are, turn to 126. If you're not, turn to 115. I am. My 3 skills were arrow cutting, immunity to poisons, and escapology. So this could be quite a handy moment to be an escapologist. I am an escapologist. Turn to 126. Using your escapologist skill, you had tensed your body and held your limbs so that, though the buccaneers bound you tightly, when you relaxed, the ropes were loosened. You wriggle and twist, using the amazing suppleness of your body to loosen the bonds further. Dislocating a shoulder, you succeed in freeing an arm and then quickly dispose of the ropes which confine you. In the darkness of the oar deck, you are thankful for the diet, which has given you unusual powers of seeing in the dark. The duty guard doesn't hear you as you steal past the sleeping bodies at the oars, until you are close enough to wrap a handy piece of chain around his neck and choke him into unconsciousness. He crumples without a sound, and you step over his body to the locker where they have stowed your ninja tools and retrieve them. One by one you free the crew and tell them to wait quietly for your signal, whilst you go to the main captain to see if the buccaneer captain is sleeping aboard his prize. Silently you climb the stairs to the main deck and wait for the moon to pass behind a cloud. You reach the door of the main cabin unnoticed. Can you pick locks? If you can and you wish to do so, turn to 153. If you cannot or do not wish to, you can use inner force to punch and smash the door open. Okay, I do not have lockpicking. That is not one of the skills I went for. So I can use inner force to punch and smash the door open. Turn to 137. You stand, legs apart, in front of the door, taking 3 slow, deep breaths. Then, when you are ready, you use the iron fist with a grunting cry as the inner force escapes you. There is a crash and the door flies off its hinges. You leap over as it falls to the floor. Cross 1 point of inner force from your character sheet. Will do. I'm down to 3. The buccaneer captain is inside, having forsaken his ship for the comfort of the Aquamarine. Woken from his sleep by the crash of the door, he rolls off the bed, pulling his cutlass from under the pillow, and tries to throw some blankets at you. You whip out a shuriken, and with a deft flick of the wrist, send it hurtling towards him, before he can cry out. Make a shuriken roll. The captain's defence against the shuriken is a 5. Okie dokie, so 6 or better. And that's a 9. So, I did succeed, turn to 164. Yeah, succeed, turn to 164. It does seem strange to me that the guy literally pulled a cutlass out from under his pillow and then thought, you know what I need to do? Attack with a blanket. You know, this sword thing I've pulled out is mainly decorative. The spinning shuriken takes the pirate captain in the throat, and the shout which was on his lips dies to a bloody gurgle as he slumps lifeless to the planks. You shout the signal, and the crew rush up from the oar deck, whirling lengths of chain and the cutlasses of their guards. You lead the attack, and the rum-sodden pirates are taken by surprise. Many jump into the sea, forgetting that their ship is a mile away in darkness. You are glad to see Glavas, freed by one of the crew, dispatching an ugly pirate who was proving troublesome. The few remaining alive surrender to him, and he orders them put to the oar for a taste of their own medicine. In the morning, you set sail again and make good speed. Turn to 26. That is definitely a step in the right direction. Okay. Now, it actually didn't say whether or not I can retrieve my shuriken from the captain, but I assume I can because he died in the cabin and I've still got control of the ship. So I'm going to not subtract it because the book didn't say I have to lose one. I hope that's fair and within the spirit of the rules. It's my sort of logic behind it. By midday of the next day, the Aquamarine has left the islands behind, and ahead of you looms the greater continent. You turn north and hug the rocky coast for some days. You may restore up to 10 points of lost endurance as you rest, gliding over the still, calm seas. I actually don't need any. I haven't taken a hit. Nobody's landed one on me yet. That's tremendous. It begins to rain slightly on the next day as you follow the shore of a vast bay. Glavas comes to talk to you and points to a large estuary where the Greybones empties into the sea. He tells you that this is his home city. Tor lies upriver. You ask him whether there is a temple to Quan there, and he shakes his head, but freely tells you that his goddess is the All-Mother, preserver of life. You ask him of the cities which lie beyond Tor on the Greybones River, but a look of pain crosses his face. Let me tell you instead of Doomover, for that is our port of call. He says, it is one of the largest cities in the Man March, perhaps 400,000 souls. And it is ruled by the Legion of the Sword of Doom. Most spit when they hear the name, but they are one of the best armies on Orb. They worship the war god, Vash Ro, he who sows for the reaper, and they spread fear about them in battle. There are temples to other gods, but the cathedral to the war god overshadows them all. The Marshal of the Legion of the Sword of Doom is Honoric, a Blackheart who has never been defeated in combat. It is said that he once slew a storm giant single-handed. He is without doubt a peerless swordsman. The Order of the Scarlet Mantis has a temple there too. They send their acolytes to the far snows for training, where they become used to hardship of all kinds. Yaemon is the greatest warrior they have ever had to lead them. They use the cross of Avatar, the supreme principle of good, as a symbol, but with a serpent twining around it. In this way, You may know one if you see one. On the next day you sight the fortified harbour walls of Doomover, and two long Blackwood ships dart out to meet you. They fly the flag of the Barbican, the Doomover Navy. As they approach, a tall man in black-ringed mail orders you to heave to. The captain obeys and the sails are slackened. He answers various questions, but when the naval commander asks what business he has at Doomover, he looks nervously at Glavis, licking his lips. Glavis answers for him, saying that he has come to sell galley slaves. The commander grins. I was going to confiscate your ship, but as you bring men we have need of, you may pass through the Barbican. With that, you are allowed on your way. The Barbican itself is a huge gatehouse, like a fort, which spans the ends of the harbour walls in an arc. The ship glides beneath it and is tied up at the busy wharf. You thank Glavis for his help and jump lithely to the land. He is returning to Tor to organise the defence against the forces of Vile, should your mission fail. He throws you a pouch containing 10 gold pieces, saying, Here, you need this. May fate smile on you, ninja. You pocket the pouch and turn to the city. Right. Okie dokie. So, I have 10 gold pieces. That's good. And I need to make a note that a snake around a triangle means baddie. That's potentially useful intelligence. I suspect it won't be secret intelligence. I suspect there is a chance, at least, that it will be something that's known no matter how you got here in the story. But I am thinking it's just possible if I'd picked going after the captain initially in that fight on the ship, then maybe Glavis would have died and I'd have missed his useful briefing there. Okay. 2 gates stand side by side. The larger is a huge arc of black obsidian like a rainbow of dark glass. The other, much smaller, consists of 2 pairs of white marble pillars topped by a portico on which the words Portal of the Gods are written in gold. Which gate will you choose to go through? The obsidian gate or the Portal of the Gods? Well, here we go. Here's my thinking. Several times in the text, they've used the term, black heart or darkness or whatever, and it's clear that in these parts, at least, there is some sense that there are multiple gods and most of them are good, but not all of them. So I'm thinking Portal of the Gods seems like a good place to go. Even if there isn't a Quan location in there. So we're going to try Portal of the Gods with the white marble with the gold writing, because it seems safer, roughly. So let's give it a go. We will try the Portal of the Gods and turn to 208. Okay. As you step between the pillars of white marble, a voice speaks as if from the stones. Welcome to the sanctuary. Draw no swords here. Conveniently, I don't carry one. You can't see anyone nearby, but ahead of you, a huge young warrior clad in russet and grey is crawling painfully up the steps of a temple. A priest in yellow robes comes out to help him, but as he leans down, a mounted knight in a black surcoat rides up the temple steps and lops the priest's head off. Another priest casts a spell. The horse rears backwards, and then two other horsemen wearing the same coat of arms, a silver sword hanging by a silver thread on a black background, ride up and take the reins from their friend. He curses the young warrior in a rage, but seems helpless as they lead him past you and gallop out through the marble gate. Priests carry their decapitated colleague and the young warrior, who has left a trail of blood on the steps, into the temple. As they do so, a wizened, stooped old man with a necklace of crystal which clicks as he sways, croaks, "I foretold it. But did you heed me, the seer? No. Will Beaten the Free smile on you now, false priests?" He turns and shuffles towards a small wooden chapel. The dead priests serve Beaten, whose followers seek to bring nearer paradise on Orb by living lives of capricious goodness, mocking all laws that constrict the free spirit. So, do we follow the priests into the temple of Beaten, leave the sanctuary and pass through the obsidian gate, or follow the old man who claimed to be a seer? Well, I am indeed tempted to follow the old man because he clearly knows what's going on. He obviously knows what's what. He warned them about the random beheading, apparently, and the proportion of the priests of Beaten who are currently headless is quite high. So I'm not convinced they are as helpful as they might otherwise appear. So I think I'm going to follow the old man who claimed to be a seer and find out if he's actually telling the truth. So we will try paragraph 36. The seer is shuffling towards a porch at the entrance of the small wooden chapel that lies beyond the temple to Beaten the Free. He turns towards you and beckons you inside. The chapel is small and dark, but to your surprise, it is clean and well kept. Scrolls are neatly stacked in racks along the walls. The old man calls a girl's name, and his acolyte appears, a surprisingly pretty girl of no more than 80 seasons. Whilst you wonder what she's doing with this stooped old man in a chapel that is too small to hold more than 20 people, he produces a long and wicked-looking sacrificial knife. In the darkness of the chapel, his features look more gaunt and powerful than they did when he raved at the priests. He tells you to lie down on what looks like a small marble tomb with a silver ewer beside it. The young girl reaches to guide you to it. If you trust them and allow her to guide you, turn to 50. If you decide to take your leave hastily, turn to 27. Wow. So, mad crotchety old seer holding a knife, and they're asking me to lie down on top of a tomb with, clearly space for blood to come out. Well, obviously, that's a terrible, terrible choice. On the other hand, he's an old man. I'm tempted to find out what he actually wants to do. Because his normal way of getting sacrificial victims cannot be, surely, asking them politely to lie down on the marble while he cuts them apart. Um, and I want to find out what happens next. So I am going to lie down and concentrate on the fact that he's an old man, and if he actually does try and stab me, I might be able to get better of him. Um, and we'll try. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. Um, so I will allow her to guide me and turn to 50. If this is a terrible choice, it's a terrible choice. But, you know, got to make a decision, right? The girl takes your hand in hers and leads you to the marble slab. The old man explains that he must let some of your blood into the silver chalice if he is to show you the future. He cuts a vein in your arm, and the blood pumps into the ewer. You look at him with alarm as he lets it flow until you've lost half a pint and your arm begins to tingle. Subtract 2 from your endurance. That I can do. My endurance is now 18. Then he seals the wound with a spell. The girl pours a green potion into the ewer. You feel faint and obey him when he tells you to look at a mirror which hangs on the wall above you. He begins to chant and produces a crystal prism which he holds over the ewer. The blood and potion bubble, and the seer's chanting grows louder. A picture forms in the mirror of 2 men leaving a city on horseback. The larger is dressed in black plate mail and carries a black shield, upon which is an emblem of a silver sword dangling from a silver thread, the sword of doom. His face is arrogant and cruel. The other is dressed in the clothes of a martial arts monk, scarlet, with a thin black belt. They are riding towards you in silence, and the monk's piercing black eyes gaze unwavering into yours. The seer informs you that the vision shows Yaman, Grand Master of Flame, riding with Honoric, Marshal of the Legion of the Sword of Doom, north from Mortavalon. He tells you they are travelling to the Pillars of Change, and each to speak a word which will imprison a god and a goddess in Inferno. Honoric seeks to rule the whole of the Man March. You fall into a trance, and when you wake up you find yourself outside Doomover, walking on the road to Mortavalon. You wonder what the seer may have done whilst you were entranced. Has he told anyone of your vision? At any rate, the vision suggested that Honoric and Yaman were far ahead. You realise that you must travel to Mortavalon to find out where Yaman and Honoric are. Turn to 65. Okay, now I'm just going to take a little look at the map here because Doomover is down on the sort of bottom left coast. The Pillars of Change are right up at the top right. And they have just set off from Mortavalon, which is only a little bit closer to the Pillars than I am. No, you're right, Sparrow. It didn't actually go all that badly. It seems, I mean, it cost me a couple of points, but it set me on the right path. However, they are riding and I am walking. They've got a head start of distance. The map doesn't seem to have a scale, but they've got a head start of some amount of distance. I'm not, at least in principle, I'm not completely horrified by that. And it looks as if I can begin to make the journey to chase them down. And they do have to get through something called the Storm Giant's Causeway. Now, if I remember, there was a thing where they said that Honoric had killed a storm giant single-handed, which makes me feel that the storm giant's causeway could be filled with people who are going to be very eager to take vengeance upon him. And if that's true, then maybe he'll be picking his way through storm giant after storm giant while I catch him up. At least that's my thinking. So, we have to travel to Mortavalon to find out where Yaman and Honoric are. We turn to 65. As you leave the forbidding, towered walls of Doomover behind, the sun climbs in the sky, ripening the corn and barley which rustles in the breeze. The fields do not stretch for far, and you are soon on the edge of a low plain, the Plain of Feet, on which several thousand of the Legion of the Sword of Doom, smart and efficient, are practising for the forthcoming war. The smooth plain gradually gives way to a wilderness of trees and vines. Will you continue along the road to Mortavalon, or strike north of the road into the wilderness? Okay, well, they provided me with a map for a reason. So, as far as I can tell, Mortavalon is essentially east-northeast. So I can head in that direction, or I can head straight north. It does say that Mortavalon is a road. Or strike north into the wilderness. So here's my logic. I am this super ninja warrior chap. I should be able to move very swiftly over rough terrain. So they, riding horses and heavily armoured and things of that nature, may have to follow the road, but I don't think I have to necessarily. I think I may be able to cut them off. That's my logic. So I think I'm going to roll the dice on being able to move over the wilderness quickly and cut off the corner and catch them up a little bit. I hope. So we will try to strike north of the road into the wilderness and turn to 235. 235 seems like a great idea. You gather grapes and nuts aplenty, living off the land as you jog through the wilderness, checking your position by the position and height of the sun. You cover the ground quickly and are soon in a range of low hills crowned with cypress trees, and climbing up into one you pass an untroubled and restful night. You may restore up to 2 endurance. Yes, that's excellent. I needed exactly 2 endurance to get back to 20. Perfect. If you wish to continue through the wilderness and pass north of Mortavalon, turn to 341. If you wish to rejoin the road near the city to Mortavalon, turn to 212. This feels like a "are you sure" moment. However, I'm sticking by my original logic. Wilderness could be suddenly brutal, but I can get back to the road if I need to, I guess, so let's press on. We will continue through the wilderness and pass north of Mortavalon. Yes. Yes, Sparrow, you're quite right. What is better for blood loss than vigorous exercise and restricted calories? That is exactly why when you give blood at the blood van, they immediately don't give you anything to eat or drink and make you jump up and down. That's exactly the reason they do that. We we obviously agree on all of this. Yeah. So we will continue through the wilderness and pass north of Mortavalon, which is turned to 341. You strike north from Doomover until you come to a marshland called the Green Fen. You skirt this, crossing the river which flows out of the dank mires, and trot for a few days, hunting and foraging at need and sleeping in trees. After several days, you turn northeast and warily cross the track which leads north from Mortavalon to the city of Sundial, and climb into the wild and windswept hills known as the Barrow Swales, heading for the city of Feendil. You may restore any endurance lost so far on this journey. I'm fine. On a day which dawns strangely cold, a mist lies heavily around the hills, and you find yourself in a narrow gully. A boulder thuds dully towards you from higher up the hill, but you leap agilely out of its way, to be faced by a great two-headed giant waving a thorny club which looks like the trunk of a small tree. The club whistles through the air towards you, and you duck low beneath it. The giant roars in frustration. Will you use the leaping tiger kick, the iron fist punch, or the whirlpool throw? We're definitely not going to try and throw a giant. So we will have a go at the leaping tiger kick and turn to 316. It is now clear why they allowed you to restore all of your endurance at this moment, because they're expecting us to... Oh boy. Okay. So the two-headed giant does not have a good defense against the leaping tiger kick. However, his endurance is 25, which is 5 more than me, and his damage is 2d6 plus 1. Okay. So, a few additional rules. The two-headed giant is dull-witted and slow, but very strong. You will need to strike it several telling blows while avoiding the colossal club with which it is trying to flatten you. Your defense against the monster's tree trunk is 8. It is impossible to block due to its enormous size and weight, but relatively easy to dodge due to your comparative smallness and speed, as you try to flip, leap and cartwheel out of its path. Okay. So, because of that, my defense against the tree trunk is 8. He says that's easy to dodge. I think he's likely to hit a 9 or above quite often, if you ask me. But anyway, the defense against leaping tiger kick is 4. I only have 3 remaining force points I can spend, so I'm not going to do any of those. We're going to try and take him down the old-fashioned way. So, I need to score a 5 or better on these 2 dice first of all. And that's an 8. So I've landed my first hit, which is d6 plus 2. Okay, that's only a 4 total. So his endurance is down to 21. Now he has to hit a 9 or better to hit me. And he's rolled exactly a 9. So I can't block him, so he gets to roll 2 dice plus 1. And that's an 8 plus 1 is 9. That drops my endurance to 11. So his endurance is now 21. Right. I'm going to keep trying to kick him. I'm going to keep trying to kick him. Okay, that is a 7, which is easily enough to land a hit. And I roll a bit better. That's a 6 for damage, plus 2 is 8. So his total comes down to 13. However, he now gets a go. And that's an 8, which means he misses. Only just, but he misses. So I get another go. I need a 5. And that's a 10. So I get to do, again, d6 plus 2. And that's a further 5 damage to him, which knocks him down to 8. But unfortunately, he gets another go. And he's rolled a 4, which is not enough to hit me. So I get another go. And that's a 9, which is enough to hit him. A total of 7 damage, meaning he's now down to 1 point of damage. One endurance left. He gets one more swing at me. That's a 6. Not enough. Remember, he only scores on a 9. And I've rolled a 9, which is enough. And though I could roll 1d6 plus 2, the reality is even 1 would be enough to deal with him. So it's cost me almost half of my endurance, but I have defeated him. Which means if you win, turn to 3-3-6. The two-headed giant crashes to the ground, cracking the rock. Saliva flecked with blood covers its lips. You move on, and in the mist see the cave which was its lair. Investigating carefully, you find a selection of bones cracked open, which have had the marrow sucked out of them, and a small sack full of copper pieces. The giant's treasure is worthless to you, too heavy to carry. But you do find a black leather gauntlet sewn with delicate silver thread. It carries the virtue of magic, a gauntlet of striking, and you put it on. Add +1 to your punch modifier when using the Iron Fist, Tiger's Paw, or Cobra Strike punches. Okay, so what that means is all of the punches I now roll at +1 when I want to hit. Which suddenly makes punches much more appealing, since, you know, you quite often have to beat a 7 or something. So rolling an 8 is much harder than rolling a 7. It doesn't sound it, but it's the way maths works. So you continue on through the hills as the mist lifts and head into the wild wastelands towards the city of Fiendil. Turn to 93. We will indeed turn to 93. The wild lands give way to the meadows of the valley of the River Fortune. You pass the tracks of strange beasts everywhere, and skirting a dense and gloomy wood, you find a wide swathe trampled in the meadow grass. Bending down to examine the tracks, you see they were made by a large band of orcs returning, perhaps, into the rift a few days ago. As you sniff the air, a man staggers towards you out of the waist-high grass. He is old and wears a blue robe that is in tatters, but it is his face that holds your attention. It is encrusted with blood, for his eyes have been gouged out. You call to him, and he sits down suddenly, saying that he has no gold, and that he has a terrible disease that you would catch if you ate him. You reassure him that you are not a cannibal, and ask him what happened. He tells you that he is a monk from Feindel. He is losing track of time, but he thinks that he has felt the sun on his face 4 times, since a man called Honoric had him blinded for spying through a keyhole. He was with a Grand Master of our order, a fine man named Yaemon, and I saw them planning a journey north on a map. But Yaemon heard me, and I was caught. Help me, I'm starving. Which way is the river? You tell him to walk downhill if he wishes to find the river, and taking pity on him, give him some nuts which you have gathered. He remembers only that they were planning to meet a 3rd man, whom they called the Death Mage. There is nothing further you can do to help him, and so you journey on towards the city of Feindel. Turn to 260. The journey across the wastelands takes 4 days. If you have been hurt, you may restore up to 6 points of endurance. That's handy. That gets me back up to 17, which isn't wildly far off my starting number. We like that. For much of the way you follow the banks of the River of Fortune, which is joined by a little trodden track, stretching from Feindel to Greygilds on the Moor, the city of learning far to the south. It rains on the 3rd day, and for the first time you notice that the climate is much cooler than that in the islands and the endless sea. At last, as the mountains loom ahead, you see the city of Feindel in a verdant valley. The city walls are ill-kempt, in places even breached, and there are no guards at the gate, only an old man in a wine-stained toga, sitting on a stone block which was once part of the battlements of the gate tower. You are about to pass him by when he calls softly to you. Avenger, well met in Feindel. You have travelled far from the island of tranquil dreams. He is weak with age and seems to hold no threat for you, save that somehow he knows who you are. There is no one else in sight. Do you implore him to say nothing about you to anyone, or kill him with a deft chop to the head? We are not going to go around randomly killing people just because they know our name or our mission. I mean, we should, perhaps, but we're not going to do that because we're not that kind of ninja. So we are going to just beg him to say nothing about our passing to anyone. 234. We're going to go to. Oh, but you are expected. Whimsical himself already knows of you, but not the vile ones. It is not fated that they should know. He pauses. Yet. Who is Whimsical, you ask? The theocrat of fate, The ruler of Feindil. You know so little, stranger. Here is the golden touch for you. Go to the volunteer. He points down the main street. You will hear something there to your advantage. Oh, we knew you were coming all right. He breaks into a peal of laughter. Not wishing to draw further attention to yourself, you hurry along the main street, Dreamer's Saunter. 50 yards down the street hangs the sign of the volunteer. A young warrior on bended knee receiving a sword from a man in golden robes, wearing a smiling golden mask. So, will we take the old hermit's advice and go in, or continue on down Dreamer's Saunter? Well, I think we are definitely going to heed the advice and go in, because he seems to know what's what. So we will turn to 200. You step through the doorway of the Volunteer Inn and are surprised to see a wheel-shaped room, airy and light with a circular bar at its centre. There are 10 tables with chairs screwed into the floor around them, but perhaps because of the sound the door makes, everyone seems to be looking at you, and all conversation ceases. A man dressed in robes which bear the symbol of a 10-spoked wheel greets you as Avenger and invites you to join him. You sit opposite him and demand to know how he knows your name. He replies, We who follow fate may often know what will come to pass. Our leader, Whimsical, foresees the arrival of all strangers. But surely, you ask, with such power he could rule the Man March. We only see what we are fated to see, and it is not Whimsical's fate to rule the Man March. You tell him that there is a conspiracy amongst the followers of evil gods to enslave their fellow men. The priest replies that he knows this, and when you demand what the followers of fate plan to do, he merely spreads his hands and says, What will be, and you cannot change it. He goes on, however, to say that he realises that the spires of foreshadowing, with its great cathedral to fate, will fall first if the evil ones have their way, and he says that he is on your side. He even asks you to become a tool of fate and to join the elite band of heroes who are fated to do great deeds in her service and to embrace the worship of fate. For she is above other gods, keeper of the balance, without which all things would perish. You have heard of the elite few who serve fate as her tools. This is indeed an honour. One of the drinkers leaves the inn as he invites you to go with him to Feindal's cathedral to fate. Will you embrace the worship of fate, or politely decline the priest's offer? So here's what I'm thinking. The upside is that it might make me more elite, give me some fate points, allow me to do various things that otherwise I wouldn't be able to do. The downside is I'm supposed to be a devoted monk to the god Quan, and maybe he doesn't like it when his devoted followers also sign on to be followers of another god. I don't know. This is obviously a sort of polytheistic environment. In most polytheistic cultures, there were some it was okay to pair up, and others there weren't. You know, there were in Greek society, for example, nobody who believed and worshipped at the Athenian cult of Pallas Athena would want anything to do with Poseidon, and vice versa. But lots of people, whatever their basic worship set, were entirely on board with Hestia, Zeus, and Apollo anyway, even if they weren't their main things. So I really don't know what the right thing to do here is. I don't know if Quan the god is a jealous god, or would be okay with that, or if fate would demand something else, or even if once I go to the temple, when I take the vow, will there be a moment where they'll say, and you have to renounce worship of Quan, and I can at that point say, nope, that's too much, I'm not doing that. I am frankly torn. Um, so, this is what I'm thinking. I am thinking this is the right moment to actually stop for the night because my voice is starting to get a little bit tired. Yes, Crit, absolutely. I've done all right in terms of surviving so far, and other than using up 40% of my force, I'm actually doing okay in terms of stats. I'm, I'm not doing that badly. Um, but I think this is the moment because I need to give the choice of fate a little bit more thought, and my voice is getting a little bit tired. What I will do is I will call it for tonight, um, and say thank you so much to everybody who watched live or in on VOD. I hope you enjoyed a bit of the Way of the Tiger. I have to say, I don't remember anything about playing this when I was a youngster. I got it when I was a teenager, and I'm not a teenager anymore. Um, I think this one is rather beautifully written, and I'm quite enjoying both the setting and the combat system. Um, it's a bit more nerve wracking, I think, uh, than the combat system in Fighting Fantasy, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. So I will get back to this when I next have an opportunity. I don't know exactly when that'll be, but if it turns out there's a night coming up in the next couple of weeks where we would normally do something, and I'm on my own, then I will do this. If there isn't, what I will probably do is slide in an extra session on a Monday or a Tuesday night or something like that. Um, so, uh, thank you very much for joining me. You say all 8 are still available, Crit. I think that sounds like a mission to undertake because this is the only one I have. And I know the reason for that. It's the same reason I only have the first of the Lone Wolf ones. Um, I tended to get a lot of the Fighting Fantasy ones, and whenever I saw one from a different series, I tended to pick up just one to sort of have a go to see what the system was like and um, enjoy the basics. Um, but I always went back to just buying another Fighting Fantasy book because they kept releasing those. Um, but if, as you say, if the original 6 plus 0 and 7 are all available, um, I may have to end up doing that, even if I buy them in electronic form, if you know what I mean, which might be slightly less expensive. I'm buying in bulk. um, and hopefully I can do that and we can start working the way through the whole series because I think these are rather beautifully written. I think they're a nice thing to read. So, um, thank you very much. Uh, Mind you, imagine getting all the way to book 7, um, and then dying 3/4 of the way through that, and then thinking, okay, all the way back to the beginning. that would that would hurt. That would hurt. Um, okay, uh, so, so um, thank you very much. I hope you've had some fun. I certainly have, And next Friday, I think, is a Traveller Friday. Uh, Luke did a Hitman episode on Tuesday night, just gone. I hope he may be starting up a more regular Luke Plays series. So if you're interested in that, that's that's something that may well be coming. And in the meantime, thank you very much for your company and your enthusiasm. And thank you to Mark Smith and Jamie Thompson for writing this, because this has been a lot of fun so far, and we're not done with it yet. So, thanks a lot, and good night.